specialist technology, prediction markets, Hollywood Stock Exchange, and a lot more. He's a TV presenter, radio host, entrepreneur, broadcaster, and journalist. Some of the biggest networks in the world. He's a presenter for Al Jazeera English and a blogger with Huffington Post. He's also the host of a weekly radio show, The Truth About Markets. And he's been listening for the last hour while we've been attacking Lord Obama. And I was talking to him in the break. I said, let me guess what your whole view on this is. It doesn't matter. It's the big international banks running it all, and presidents are basically puppets. But we'll get his specific take on that right now. Max Keiser, thanks for coming on with us.
Alex Jones, nice to be here.
You bet. We're going to be talking for the next hour, and we're opening the phones up in 20 minutes, I promise. But, Max, your whole take on this, I mean, you're against the bailout, the banker takeover. Lord Obama's for it.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, before we get into the Obama thing, let's look at the economy for a second. Since I was on your show last time, there's been some news events. The thing about it in the U.S. is you have to understand that it's a different kind of a gulag than a gulag that we're used to. When people think of gulag, they think Chinese gulag. They think forced labor. But the American gulag is forced consumption. 70% of the economy is consumption. It's a forced consumption. It runs on people overindulging, and it runs on cheap money. Now, this whole banking crisis that started a year and a half ago was the result of that cheap money spigot being cut off for a number of reasons. And we've had a period now of this so-called deflation, which is really just a hoax, if you will, a deflation hoax. And just this past few days, Alex, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but the inflation spigot is being turned on once again to fuel the consumption gulag in America. We've got something like $500 billion in new U.S. Treasury notes that have to be sold immediately to fund the deficits. So the hyperinflation that you were talking about 18 months ago, and Peter Schiff was talking about, and Jim Rogers was talking about, there was a break, there was a pause during this deflationary period when we saw oil collapse from $147 down to the $60 range. But now that's all going to reverse, and we're going to go back to this hyperinflationary scenario, which is horrible for the U.S. dollar. It's horrible for the American consumer unless they, sign up to this casino gulag consumption state, as I like to think of it or refer to it as. So all those bets are back on the table. So going forward, just so your listeners keep that in mind, the idea of buying gold and silver to protect yourself, that's still very much in play. And don't get fooled by this big deflation that we've seen in the last couple of months. And the reason for it has to do with the big geopolitical workings out there. Russia invaded Georgia. Russia was getting too big for its boots. And they decided that, Exxon might be making a lot of money, but we don't want Russia making much money or Venezuela making a lot of money. So they took these markets down. They took these markets down in anticipation of trying to help the Republicans. Let's face it, the Republicans are supported in part by big oil. But now that the election looks like it's finished, basically, today you saw oil spike $7 in a single day. That's an historic spike because they can't keep the genie in the bottle anymore. The hyperinflation story is very much back in play. You haven't talked about it recently, Alex, because you had a fake rally in the dollar. But I think that fake rally in the dollar is coming to a close.
Yeah, that was other currencies falling. And also not just manipulation. You had a lot of speculators dumping their stocks, dumping things liquidating so that they could cover their margins. That's another reason we saw some of the bubbles burst. But you're right. They've signaled only a total devaluation of the dollar. So how fast do you see the hyperinflation setting in?
Well, it's going to happen with a big bang because if you look at the money supply numbers, M3, M2, M1, or MZM, which is money at zero maturity, these numbers in the last 2 weeks and 3 weeks have absolutely historically skyrocketed. So it doesn't take long for that to filter its way into the general economy. And, the story that you've carried on your show with guys like Peter Schiff and others. And that primary story that was interrupted by, as you point out, the currencies were dumped, and there was a spat of what's being called deflation. But that's ridiculous. All that's going to happen is that all the bankers that got bailed out with your taxpayer money in America, they've got your money. Now they're going to buy gold. So you're going to be left without any gold because you were challenged, you maybe had weak hands, maybe you sold some of your gold, and now who's going to be buying that gold at the cheaper price?
Well, exactly. We have gold dropping while people can't buy it hardly anywhere. Talk about free market. This thing's totally rigged, where people are grabbing it and snatching it up worldwide. You can't find it, but its price is plunging. Max,
you were talking about how the physical gold price is double what the paper gold price is. And the paper price has been manipulated down by these so-called deflationistas. And you can't get gold and silver for anything less than 50, 60, and sometimes 100% premium. Now, this is what I hear is going to happen in December. My understanding, Alex, is that in December, the Comex in New York is going to be busted. The Comex in New York is short gold and silver beyond what they can deliver. Come December, there's going to be a raid on the Comex from some very large international players. And as you know, we do a lot of international press, all over the world. I'm hearing this from a lot of people around the world. They're going to do a raid on the Comex and bust the Comex and demand delivery of silver that they do not have at the Comex. They've sold short bullion that they do not have. When that happens, when that story gets out, gold will double in a day. Gold will double in a day. If you don't have the gold now, it'll be too late because it'll be doubled in a day. And I'm hearing this in December. There's going to be a massive, and I'm hearing it might come from Russia because Russia is not happy with how this Bush administration has manipulated the price of oil down to the $60 level to help their buddy McCain. And they're hurting. Now they're saying, okay, well, the hell with you. We're going to bust open the Comex in December because we know they're short silver and gold. They can't deliver it. They've sold short more than they could possibly deliver it, and they're going to shut that market down. And that's going to be a massive dislocation of these markets. So again, I urge people, position yourself ahead of that. The dollar is absolute toast.